Welcome to What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast with hosts Mark Duvall and John Hanson.
Are you kidding me?
Two old friends and knuckleheads discussing and covering their top 4 choices for any and all topics, making up their Mount Rushmore selections each week. Nothing is off limits. As you listen, remember, we always want to know, what's your Mount Rushmore?
Yo, kids! Thanks for joining us. We're back, and you found us once again. We're always happy to have all of our listeners along for these rides because it's fun for us, and we like when you participate too. Again, you know it. It's Mark and John with the What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Well, that was John Hanson. I'm the other host, Mark Duvall. If you've listened before, you already know that. But this time, this week, we decided to do something pretty specific. We have not done this kind of topic yet, so we thought we'd start with one. And why not with this joker? Today, we are going to be picking our top 4 choices all time of Will Ferrell movies.
We're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
Will Ferrell is one of those guys that he had about a decade, maybe a little longer run in the late 90s into the 2000s, where this dude was probably just printing money because of the brilliant comedies that he kept putting out into the world. And he was very involved in a lot of them, not just acting. I mean, he was a huge, contributor when it came to the screenplay, the writing, the producing.
Yeah.
And a lot of these movies that I at least are on my list, I'd say a good solid 3 of the 4 that I'm going to be discussing are basically movies about dipshits. and he does that topic so well. So we decided, let's dedicate a Mount Rushmore podcast episode to Mr. Will Ferrell.
And dipshits around the world too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point with his movies in general, because there's always good writing behind them, and he's got good co-stars, but his antics, I mean, he's just kind of a wacky guy.
Let's get this rolling then. I'm going to I'll kick this off with my first pick, and my first pick goes back to 2004. It's a comedy that was released, and it was directed by Will Ferrell's good kind of sidekick, Adam McKay, who's involved in a lot of these. They're a quick little reference before I name the movie. Will Ferrell and Adam McKay also started and founded the website Funny or Die.
Yeah.
If you have never been there, go check it out. You'll be there for days just watching videos and clips and God knows what, parodies. It's one of the more funny websites on the internet. It's funnyordie.com. That's Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's website. But anyway, my first pick, I'm going to start with, I'm going to go back a little retro, and I'm going to go Ron Burgundy style, baby. And I'm going to talk about Anchorman as my first pick.
Yes.
And again, this came out in 2004, and Anchorman it's just such a unique twist on a comedy because he's focusing kind of on the golden age of being a TV anchorman for your local news or national news, even for that matter. And the movie's kind of based around the mid 70s, and Will's character, Ron Burgundy, he's the main TV anchorman in San Diego where they're doing the news. And he's like a little local legend. He's a big celebrity in San Diego, and he's an absolute buffoon.
He is. He's a buffoon.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
And like so many of Will Ferrell's movies, they are packed with a lot of really cool co-stars. Like in Anchorman, you have Steve Carell, you have Paul Rudd, you have Christina Applegate, you had Fred Willard. These are all very funny people. And when you put them all together, I mean, even Christina Applegate is funny in Anchorman. Hats off to her. She did a great job, being the female that had to enter a very male world, which is a big part of the plot of this movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because it's obviously the 70s when women just weren't part of that world at all, and she had to break through, and she did a good job doing it. Of course, she took a lot of shit. And side note, before you move on, Christina Applegate was one of my childhood celebrity crushes from a previous episode. So if anybody's listening to this and they missed that episode, go back and catch it.
Go check it out. We talk more specifics about Applegate. But like I was saying, though, there's so many. Not just in Anchorman, but I got to imagine pretty much every movie we're going to be discussing, it's peppered with one-liners that people repeat at happy hour, almost on a daily basis. It's not that weird if you hear somebody reference a Will Ferrell movie.
It's called Sex Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries. It's made with bits of real panther, so you know it's good.
It's quite pungent.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, it's a formidable scent. It stings the nostrils. In a good way.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm going to be honest with you. That smells like pure gasoline.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
And like with Anchorman, they make it very obvious that Ron Burgundy will read anything on the teleprompter that's put in front of him because he doesn't pay attention to what he's saying. He just repeats what he's reading without thinking about it, without putting it into context. And I love how her character takes advantage of that when they're kind of at war with each other to earn the head anchor position. And she changes the teleprompter where his normal sign off every night is, "You stay classy, San Diego." And then one time to end the newscast, she just writes at the end of him reading all of his stuff, it just says, "Go fuck yourself, San Diego." And then it ends the show.
Yeah.
And the whole newsroom goes bananas because they're wondering who put that on the teleprompter, and he gets in trouble, obviously, because he's the one who says it.
Yeah. And he, like you said, he just reads it without even realizing what he said, without even thinking about it or realizing it. It just comes out of his mouth. Yeah.
And that scene's hilarious because he says that and then like acts like nothing just happened.
Yeah. Because he has no clue. He's not paying attention to what he just says it. Because, frankly, he's a buffoon.
He's a buffoon.
He's actually pretty good at playing buffoons. Will Ferrell is.
He's maybe second to none, quite frankly. He's amazing at it.
I don't think he's going to be starring in any Albert Einstein biopics at all anytime soon.
Who knows, though? That's the thing with Will Ferrell. It wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden you did hear of like a movie coming out and now he went serious. Look how many people do this, where they start their careers in comedy. And then it parlays into being them really like mastering the craft of being an actor.
It's easier for a comic actor to do a drama than for a dramatic actor to do comedy. I think comedy is harder personally. And you hear actors talk about that all the time.
Agreed.
And Will Ferrell has done a couple of serious movies, and I'll be honest, they're not among my favorites of his. I just think his lane is playing. It doesn't have to be a buffoon, but definitely playing in the comedy role.
Dipshit.
Yeah. And all of mine are comedies. So that I'm sure yours are too.
Absolutely. They are.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll hit my first pick then. I'm bouncing around a little bit in terms of timeline here. I thought about putting them in order, but my first one is a movie that I saw it when it first came out. I just recently rewatched it this year, and it's still held up. It's The Other Guys from 2010.
With Wahlberg.
Yeah, with Mark Wahlberg. It's an action comedy. They call those buddy cop type movies,
Yeah.
Checks all those boxes. These guys play, NYPD detectives.
Pop one off. There you go. Pop it off. Don't think, just go. Here we go. Do it, yes.
Jerry, I did my first desk pop. It's a real thing, right?
A desk pop?
Yeah.
No, that's not real.
They were so convincing in their argument.
And it was a big hit. It was one of his bigger hits, I think. Did $170 million at the box office. It's just a funny concept. But part of that is, Mark Wahlberg. You got Will Ferrell, of course. Mark Wahlberg's another one of those Hollywood golden boys, especially at that point in time. He could probably, do no wrong with his box office numbers. But these guys are really funny together. Mark Wahlberg is the wild, sort of unhinged partner. And by the way, it's also funny because everybody in the precinct where they work hates Mark Wahlberg. because he shot Derek Jeter.
That's right.
And it's in New York City. So you don't shoot Derek Jeter in New York City without the world hating you.
Whoever wrote that, genius.
Yeah, it
A
is.
New York cop who at that time shot Derek Jeter of all people, the most beloved New Yorker at the time.
Yep, or one of the most beloved of all time. Yeah. And so he gets stuck partnered with Will Ferrell, who's very much opposite. These two guys are the absolute opposites of each other in the movie. Will Ferrell's boring, kind of a mild mannered by the book sort of guy, almost like an accountant who's actually a cop sort of attitude. And really some of the funnier elements of that whole movie come from Mark Wahlberg meeting Will Ferrell's wife, who is played by Eva Mendes. Obviously very attractive. She actually
She's
is
a looker.
The character she's a doctor. So she's not only very good looking, but she's also very smart. And Wahlberg is just blown away that how can she possibly be married to this dork, this
And
boring...
rightfully so. I would think the same damn thing.
Yeah, the whole world would. It was set up that way. It's actually very, very funny. And one of the funnier parts about it too is that through the movie, Will Ferrell plays it off as if she's just average. Like, yeah, I probably could do better.
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Sheila Gamble, his wife,
Come on, seriously, who is that?
his old lady.
Sweetie, it's a workstation.
Got it.
And you come in here dressed like a hobo. It's distracting.
I know you're working. I'm so sorry.
Come on. Seriously. Come on, what? Who is that? It's the old ball and chain. Look, they're not all first-round picks, okay? Are you gonna change?
Ooh, I already did.
It's no big deal. You look really, really nice. Terry, you don't have to be polite, okay? She looks kind of shitty.
And then he had meeting one of his ex-girlfriends, and she's like a 10 also.
Yeah.
So Wahlberg can't quite figure it out what's going on there. But
You must have that, what they call BDE. I'll let you fill. I'm not going to complete what that means, but I bet that has something to do with it.
he could very well be. Yeah. I mean, I guess he's not a buffoon then. He's not a buffoon in that part of his life, in that sense.
No, and I know we're focusing obviously on Will Ferrell. That's the topic of today, but Mark Wahlberg might be a good example of what you were just talking about. He didn't come out of the gate as a comedic actor. He did serious stuff after being Marky Mark in the Funky Bunch. And then he kind of came back and later in his career started doing comedies.
You're right. Yeah.
That's kind of a weird example that ironically that's an example right there handed in front of us on the platter after mentioning it.
Throws an action movie in there, so it's you're right. He's done dramatic stuff as one of his first big movies. Maybe it was his very first big movie. I think it was Boogie Nights, playing. That wasn't a funny part. It was a dramatic movie, and
more BDE too.
Yeah, yeah, you got that right.
They proved it at the end.
They did.
What? No.
Yeah, like Basketball Diaries. That's a very serious role. There's not much comedy coming out of that one. That's some dark stuff.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's a good example of somebody who's got enough versatility to do a little bit of everything: action, drama, comedy, and be able to act with a buffoon like Will. So I think that's the theme of this episode: buffoonery.
Buffoonery.
One thing funny about this movie with the other guys. Will Ferrell's character drives a little Prius in that movie. Which is fitting for who he is, a boring schmuck that he is, to be driving a Prius around. No offense to anyone listening who drives a Prius, but it is what it is. Anyway, the car got into car chases in the movie. It did a lot of things that a Prius can't do, frankly. It just did. So they actually had stunt cars made up, and one of the stunt Priuses racing engine in it, but the engine was too big to fit in the little tiny hood of a Prius, so they had to put the engine in the back seat of the car. So there are some stunt scenes with the Prius racing around, and you obviously you can't see it because they don't let you see it when they're shooting it, but the engine is actually in the back seat of the car. So
jeez,
Hollywood magic.
That's a good pick though. That's a good movie. I like the Wahlberg detour we just took because Marky Mark.
We could do a Marky Mark Rushmore down the road, maybe.
Probably. He's done that many movies now where, I mean, my God, he's pretty legit at this point.
Indeed.
But good pick. Well, you want to keep rolling?
Yeah. What's your number 2?
I'm going to jump into one that I know would I know it would be on a different Mount Rushmore that I'm sure at some point we will get to. This movie is from 2003, and it's very much about Christmas. That should be the only hint you need. It's Elf.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love this. Has become one of my favorite parts of Christmas and the Christmas season is watching Elf. You know, with my family, we love this movie. It's funny. You can't get enough of it. I look forward to watching it. It's become an instant Christmas classic, and I know it would be on my Mount Rushmore if we ever did like a Christmas movie. Mount Rushmore. It's directed by Jon Favreau. It's so cool because this movie was like $33 million to make. That was their budget, but it grossed over $220 million. You know, and again, it's like a lot of Will Ferrell movies. The cast is always so strong. And look at this. Talk about classics. Talk about legends that were in this movie. James Caan, Ed Asner, Bob Newhart, Peter Dinklage. Which clearly became a huge star since the release of Elf because of Game of Thrones.
That's huge.
You got Mary Steenburgen. Is that how you say her name, by the way?
Steenburgen. Yep. She's going to pop up.
Or Jin?
Steenburgen. Bergen. I think it's Bergen.
Ted Danson's wife.
Mrs. Ted Danson. Yep. She'll pop up in one of my picks later on.
Possibly one of mine too. How dare you?
Oh, no.
And then let's not forget, it's the one and only time you'll ever see Santa Claus depicted as Artie Lang. Or by Artie Lang, I should say.
Who the heck are you?
What are you talking about? I'm Santa Claus.
No, you're not.
Why, of course I am. You're a big boy. What's your name?
Paul.
And what can I get you for Christmas?
Don't tell him what you want. He's a liar.
Let the kid talk.
You disgust me. How can you live with yourself?
Just cool it, Zippy.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Look, I'm not kidding.
You're a fake.
I'm a fake?
Yes.
How'd you like to be dead? Huh? No, he's kidding.
You stink.
I think you're gonna have a good Christmas, all right?
You smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa.
Okay.
You smell like beef and cheese. I love that line.
But again, because there's so many good one-lines, he plays Buddy the Elf, who has to come find his biological dad in New York City, and he came from the North Pole. The way it's filmed, the way it's shot, and I've heard interviews of Jon Favreau truly talking about how sensitive he was to try to make this truly a Christmas classic. What a weird and tough goal to set for yourself when making a movie. He hit his goal. I love that movie, and I know I'm not alone. Elf is incredible.
You know what? I'm surprised. I didn't really think about Elf because I sort of pigeonholed it as a Christmas movie, so it didn't really pop onto my radar for this particular list. But it absolutely could have. There's no reason that it couldn't have.
And it's actually kind of clean humor for considering most of Will Ferrell's movies. They are not PG or family friendly. There are.
Yeah, and you could probably say that about Jon Favreau and James Caan movies as well. not a lot of PG movies in those guys.
That's a good point. But yeah, I had to represent Elf. If we're going to be talking Will Ferrell movies, even though it is very Christmas, it deserves a spot on my Mount Rushmore.
I always thought it was just odd. It doesn't take away anything from the movie, but the fact that the Mary Steenburgen and James Caan have that kid. I mean, and James Caan is like in his 60s. I'm guessing at that point in time, probably.
Yeah, and it's like a middle schooler.
Yeah,
you know, he's like 12 or 13, at least if I'm guessing, maybe a little younger. But yeah, they both look a little older. Not
going to judge. Yeah, I mean, it is, but it worked because I love James Caan. He was. I love seeing him in that because he's a serious actor.
Yeah.
In so much. Obviously, we know him from the Godfather movie, but beyond that, he was always a serious actor. It's just fun to see him do comedy.
Dad!
All right, let's get it over with.
I walked all day and night to find you.
You look like you came from the North Pole.
That's exactly where I came from. Santa must have called you.
Oh, yeah, sure. He just got off the cell phone with me.
You did?
And it's so weird, too, because I've heard enough interviews about and with James Caan. He's a serious actor. And yes, obviously most notorious from The Godfather and playing Sonny Corleone. But he is one of those guys that I guess is just an absolute joker when he's not acting. He's got a really goofy sense of humor to the point where when Marlon Brando was filming Superman, he begged the studio and James Caan to like, hey, please put a part in here for James Caan. He wanted James to be on the set. And James, this is a story I heard him telling Howard Stern once in an interview.
Baba Booey.
That the only reason Marlon Brando wanted James Caan on the movie set was because no one there was making Marlon Brando laugh. He wanted one of his buddies that's funny there.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it wasn't meant to be a funny movie, Superman, but
Exactly. But Marlon Brando still just wanted someone to kind of just be that comic relief on set. I've heard it never worked. And Caan never did anything with Superman, obviously. But it was a funny story nonetheless.
Great pick. Great. James Caan, rest in peace. He was one of my favorites.
Legend. Damn legend.
For sure. And I'm glad that he made it in that movie because Elf is a great movie. And it's one that I usually watch every Christmas time, too. So good pick.
Shit, yeah. What's on deck?
Let's see. What should I pull out of my little hat next? I'm going to give you a little peek into how I do things here. Sometimes I have about 5 picks on my list, sometimes even 6, and I literally choose as I'm going through and narrow because it's so hard to pick just 4 ahead of time. And sometimes I'll make that choice based on your selection. So if you put up a pick like you had Anchorman as one of your picks, that was one of my longer picks. So then I can remove that and sneak another one onto my list. How about that?
Process. It's part of the. Yep. Eventually, someday we'll release behind the footage scenery.
Oh, how fucking boring would that be?
A lot of nose picking and a lot of muted sneezes and coughs
and occasional gas.
Gross.
Anyway, all right, back to
What's
the show.
Your next pick there, Jicky?
I think this might have been Will Ferrell's first big movie where he was, one of the stars. It's Old School, and that came out in.
This is another one of the. How did I forget Old School?
Came out in 2003. Another one with good co-stars Vince Vaughn, Luke Wilson. Made $87 million at the box office, so it wasn't necessarily his biggest box office movie, but it's one of those movies that I think has done better over time. It gets a lot of play on the cables and streaming services and all that. So I think it probably is a more popular movie than that 87 million shows. But, obviously most of us have probably seen the movie. It's about a bunch of guys in their 30s that want to relive their college years by creating a fraternity. And I think that concept, one of the reasons it probably was a hit movie, especially for people a little bit older, is because who hasn't at some point in time dreamt about their younger years, whether you're dreaming about
party again.
Yeah. You might be dreaming about your high school years or your college years, or maybe just something you were doing in your 20s. When you get into your 40s and beyond, it's not uncommon for people to dream about that. And I think that having these actual guys decide to do that was a good concept, and it worked. It was a very funny movie. Again, I think it might have been Will Ferrell's first big movie. He was sort of the main star. He had popped up in other movies as a smaller role, but I think this is one of the first times that he kind of had a breakout in playing Frank the Tank.
Tank through the quad into the gymnasium.
Come on! We're streaking! Come on! We're streaking!
Frank!
Hey, honey! Hey!
What the hell are you doing?
We're streaking!
Frank, get in the car.
Everybody's doing it.
Now!
Okay. Honey, do you think KFC's still open?
Such a great movie. Did you know this, that they actually they were planning a sequel, and they wrote an entire script about this for the sequel of this movie. They gave it to Will Ferrell and Vince Vaughn, and they both decided no, they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to revisit that again. And the script was actually all written and ready to go.
I wonder why. I wonder what they didn't want to do. Like they just wanted to leave it alone. They liked the success the first one had.
I think that's exactly what it was. I think they just decided, you know what, it was such a good movie, you can only screw it up by trying to make a sequel. So they didn't do it. And the sequel would have been about them going down to spring break, which actually probably would have been funny. It would have had some funny elements. These guys now would have been a few years older. They probably at this point in time would have been, pushing 40, going down to
married
going
with
down,
kids,
going down to spring break. So, but yeah, we'll never know. We'll never know because both of them independently by themselves turned it down. And without those two guys, they didn't even want to move forward with it. It didn't make any sense.
They say it can puncture the skin of a rhino from 100.
Ow! Oh! Yes! That's awesome! What?
You just took one in the jugular, man.
Oh my god, I did. Is this bad?
You should pull that out. That shit is not cool. Wait. Pull what out? The dart, man. Got a fucking dart in your neck. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. I like you. But you're crazy. I feel tired.
Great movie, man. I'm kind of pissed. Again, we do these all the time, and I'm sure you've had this happen too, where I'll say a pick, and you're like, "What? How did I not think of that?" Good comedies are really hard to come by. Like I'm talking the old school R-rated comedies, but he kind of revived the good old fashioned 90-minute R-rated comedy. Because that's the other brilliant thing about most of Will Ferrell, if not all of Will Ferrell's movies. They are not long. They are quick.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, him and Adam McKay, they know how to make a quick. They get in, make it funny, and get out. That's what they do.
Damn it, though. Good pick with old school.
Thank you. Well,
shit. All right. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go into my next pick, which again, I hate assuming things, but I gotta think it's gonna be on your list, and I'm gonna go with Step Brothers.
Oh yeah, on my list.
Okay, let's just get that out of the way. 2008, again directed by his buddy Adam McKay. Will Ferrell plays the character Brennan Huff, and alongside the other comedic genius, which, by the way, these two paired together, John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly played Dale Doback.
Yep.
And again, the premise, I'm sure if you're listening to this, I gotta think you've seen the movie Step Brothers. But they're these two 40-year-old dudes who came from different families. Their mom and dad marry each other. They are complete losers and dipshits. Going back to the dipshit. Yeah, the dipshit buffoon theme.
They really are.
And they now are forced to live together and become stepbrothers together.
Hey, Derek! Sprechen Sie Dick!
And again, the creativity of the nonsense that these two get themselves into and their interaction with each other, the one-lines, the fact that they started their little entertainment company called Prestige Worldwide. They end up making a big damn to-do thing with the Catalina wine mixer.
The what?
The Catalina wine mixer.
Oh, I thought it had a different name.
Yeah, I think insert right there.
Okay?
I get it.
Look, Brennan, here's the thing. It's the Catalina fucking wine mixer, okay?
Are you saying pow? What are you saying?
It's the biggest helicopter leasing event in the Western Hemisphere since 1997.
Why does he keep doing that?
I have to sell or lease at least 80 choppers to make my nut, and you mess with my nut, Brennan? Randy here is gonna eat your dick.
Like Kobayashi.
But one of the a couple parts of this movie that just so stick out to me, and this is one I've seen numerous times, as I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
But when those two collectively together go on job interviews,
I love it. I love that.
It's the perfect. What I mean by you almost have to watch it 2 or 3 times because you're going to miss things because you're laughing at what you just saw or what you're reacting to.
Well, the only reason you're living here is because me and my dad decided that your mom was really hot and maybe we should just both bang her. This is a house of learned doctors. You're not a doctor. You're a big, fat, curly-headed fuck.
The other thing about Will Ferrell always planting something for a future joke later in the movie totally happens in Step Brothers too. And that's how adamant Dale Doback, John C. Reilly's character, is about do not touch my drum set. Yes. And then Will Ferrell, not only does he touch it, he rubs his balls all over it, which starts a fight.
It starts a very big fight.
A very big fight, and it's a huge funny scene of that entire movie.
Don't ever, ever, ever touch my drum set. You understand?
Don't go in there and...
Good touching!
All right.
There. I was at about 6 there. You don't want to see me go to 10. Get your shit. We're going to my room.
But yeah, brilliant. Again, these guys paired together, you can't go wrong.
They're perfect together. I know they made a few other movies together. The Talladega Nights, John C. Reilly was in, and that Sherlock Holmes movie. That one was okay. Not quite the same as Step Brothers. I mean, those guys need to make more movies together. They really do.
100%, because it's just gold. I mean, they have real chemistry that you can't kind of fake.
Yeah, and that movie again, you talk about the one-liners. There's so many iconic parts of that movie. You know, like the "pow," you know, Rob Riggle, and a ton of great funny guest stars in that. You know, Adam Scott's hilarious in that, playing his a-hole brother. I love the 80s era Billy Joel cover band. That's all. It plays something from The Stranger. Sir, we only play songs from the 80s. So stupid.
The other thing that a lot of Will Ferrell movies include are the Dan Band.
Yeah. Oh, that Dan Band. Yeah.
You did when you just said the Billy Joel tribute band. It made me think of the Dan Band, which is for some reason he follows Will Ferrell around, and they put cameos in, and it's brilliant.
The Dan Band hasn't popped up in a movie lately. I don't think we need to get them back in Hollywood.
Well, I feel like Will Ferrell hasn't he hasn't released a comedy like what we're discussing in a long time now. It's been a minute.
Yeah, good point. I was always kind of surprised they never actually went back and did a sequel for Step Brothers. We talked about considering a sequel for Old School, but and it's different with Step Brothers because there was never nobody wrote any script or anything, but they've been asked. John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell have both been asked probably almost constantly for the last 15 years if they're going to do a sequel, and they both have said all along, no, they don't want to do it. They don't want to mess up something that was so perfect. I think that was the concept or the reason why. I mean, but it would be kind of funny because now they'd be like in their mid 50s. Seeing what they were up to.
Like I understand everyone's desire. Everyone always wants sequels until you get one, and then you get it, and you're like, oh, what a flop.
So often, I think sequels are just money grabs.
They are.
They probably, even the actors, the director, they probably all realize that the script isn't quite as strong. It's just not going to be the same thing. But at the end of the day, they dangle a bunch of money in front of them, and it's hard for them to say no to that. One thing they did do in 2011, they started to record a rap album with the Step Brothers rap album. And they actually
worldwide.
Yes. And they actually were recording some of the songs, both Will and John C. Reilly. They ended up scrapping it before they finished the album, but there are somewhere out there are rap songs that they recorded for an album that never went anywhere.
Oh my God. All right. So whose pick was that? We both had
it.
Step Brothers.
So that means we've both done 3. So now we're up to your final, I believe, right?
Yeah. Okay. So my final pick for Will Ferrell, I'm going to go back. This is finally not in the 2000s. It is the 90s, 98 to be exact. And this movie was based on characters from a Saturday Night Live skit that he did with Chris Kattan. And I'm talking about A Night at the Roxbury. This movie is so corny and so cheesy that it has to be represented because it's stupid laughs. It's stupid characters. Again, going back to the topic, dipshits. Yeah. They are total dipshits, total buffoons. And again, it's got a pretty funny cast, man. Because again, this is an SNL skit that just became basically on steroids, and they turned it into a movie like SNL has done in the past, obviously.
Yeah, many times.
Him and Chris Kattan are hilarious as these two characters. Steve and Doug Butabi, these dipshit brothers that all they want to do is go to nightclubs and try to pick up girls.
Hey, good man. How's it going tonight?
Good. You still can't come in.
Well, that's not what a friend of mine told me. Maybe you know him. His name is Abraham. You don't know.
What about his 2 friends? George Washington and George Washington.
But in this movie, you got Molly Shannon. You got Dan Hedaway. Is that how you say him?
I don't know.
You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, is that the guy from Cheers? Yeah, Carla Tortelli's husband.
The hairy guy.
Yes.
The hairiest knuckles you'll ever see.
Nick Tortelli.
Yes. Richard Grieco, Jennifer Coolidge, Colin Quinn. Lonnie Anderson is in A Night at the Roxbury.
Oh, I forgot that.
And that's the other thing, too. A lot of these that we've talked about, again, Will Ferrell stars in them, but he also is a big part of them. He writes them, co-writes them with other people. And A Night at the Roxbury, that was wrote with Chris Kattan and a guy named Steve Carran. And Steve Carran also co-wrote little side projects like Seinfeld, Veep, Bruce Almighty, Click with Adam Sandler. So
Nice.
he's got a decent little resume himself. The other thing that is so associated with this movie and this bit, is the song "What Is Love" from Hathaway.
Of course, yes. They're tied together. They're handcuffed together.
I broke the window again. Dad's gonna be pissed.
Yes, these characters in that song will forever be linked because of how they would always nod their head to the side when the song would come on. And it's like the theme, the unofficial theme to the whole damn thing.
Yes. Oh, man.
And I love how infatuated they are with Richard Grieco, who plays himself.
Richard Grieco. That's a blast from the past.
Because that's their life. They work at their dad's. They come from money. These two jokers, these brothers, and their dad owns an artificial plant store in L.A. And all they do is go to nightclubs and get rejected by women because they're buffoons and dipshits.
Well, yeah, of course, just like they did in the SNL skits.
And it's kind of weird. Like, I'll be honest, now that I somehow let old school slide through my fingers, I could easily say that could replace A Night at the Roxbury. But in hindsight, I guess we at least get to talk about one more movie. Because this is a dumb comedy. It's not like, Step Brothers or Anchorman to me. I don't think it's as clever as those two, and certainly Old School. But again, it's so stupid because of the dumb characters from SNL. And I love that they made it a bigger thing.
Yeah, it's a one-trick pony that they somehow stretched out into a 90-minute movie.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And worth the watch, obviously. I mean, I did enjoy it, clearly.
Sure.
I mean, I wouldn't have it on my Mount Rushmore if I didn't like it.
Well, exactly.
But after hearing Old School, I felt a little bit ashamed.
There's
What was that?
Are you okay?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, making sure. You don't need to call for help at all.
And we're back.
And we're back. The fourth movie on my list is actually kind of fits that same bill because you're saying like you had kind of forgotten about Old School. For me, Anchorman was on my radar, but I sort of decided when you had Anchorman on yours, I'm like, well, first of all, I knew I figured we'd match on Step Brothers, and I didn't want to take Step Brothers off my list. But when you mentioned Anchorman, that's the one that kind of gave me a chance to push that aside and bring up somebody from the bench and put them in, and that's what my fourth one is. Kind of a good tie there. It's the movie Semi-Pro from
Look at that play on words, you you witful bastard, you.
Oh, how about that? I probably would have had Anchorman on my list, except other than over Semi-Pro. It's a better movie than Semi-Pro. But once you mentioned Anchorman, hey, it just gave me a chance to throw this one up there and have another movie I liked to talk about. So, yeah, hilarious movie. It's about a fictional basketball team that's in their final season of the ABA, the American Basketball Association, which was a real basketball league. It's a fictional team, but
got a retro vibe to it.
Yeah, it takes place in the 70s, and the ABA merged with the NBA at one point in time in real life. But in the movie, the Flint Tropics, that's the name of this ABA team. They're trying to survive that merger because they want to be part of the NBA. They want to move up to the big leagues with the teams that became part of the NBA. But the problem is they were the worst team in the league and had the worst attendance and the worst winning record. They were just bottom of the barrel. And Will Ferrell plays Jackie Moon. he's the
character.
A great name too. He was the team's owner. He was the head coach, and he was also the starting power forward.
The crowd is really excited tonight. They know what's at stake, Dick. Yep, getting their home team into the NBA. Now I'm talking about free corn dogs. Oh, that's right. It's free corn dog night.
Let's try to win, but not win by too much.
Wait, we don't want to win by too much?
What
the hell are you talking about?
Corn dogs.
What?
See, if we score 125 points, that means we got to give everybody in here a free corn dog, right?
Yeah, sorry, Monks. We don't even got corn dogs.
The reason why he was the owner of the team is he was a singer that had one hit. He was a one-hit wonder, and had one hit song called "Love Me Sexy." And
Of course he did.
He took all the money that he made off his one-hit wonder, and he bought the Flint Tropics. So now with his one-hit wonder money, he now owns an ABA team. And he actually, to his credit, the character's credit, Jackie Moody, he pulls a bunch of stunts throughout the season to improve not just their attendance, but also the way they played on the court. And ends up having a nice climax at the end of the movie. I'm not going to give anything away. If anyone wants to go see it, it's probably not a movie everybody has seen before, unlike some of the other ones on our list. So I would recommend going out and checking it out. But again, like you mentioned, there's so many funny people in this movie. Woody Harrelson. There's a lot of great comic, and Jason Sudeikis, Will Arnett is in it, and Andre Benjamin. A lot of people know him as Andre. What was it? Andre 3000? Was that what he was? He was anyway. Yes, and he plays a character that has a nickname Coffee Black, which is one of the greatest nicknames. I would love to have an NBA player with a nickname Coffee Black. That would have been hilarious. It would have been fitting back in the 70s too.
It's a good Will Ferrell movie. It didn't have the commercial success of some of the ones we've talked about, like Elf and Anchorman, Step Brothers.
How do you intend to match up to the Squire's strong inside game?
It's a great question. Tomorrow, after the game, Jackie Moon, will wrestle a bear.
Oh, well, that's something, but defensively, as a team.
That's tomorrow night, one night only. Watch Dewey the wrestling bear attack me, and he's killed people in public before.
Almost slapstick humor at times. It is definitely some silly stuff. I was right when this movie came out. I had just started working at the Minnesota Timberwolves, and being an NBA team, we did a promotion around this movie actually, and we had in our office, kind of like our radio days. You and I would have talked about. We would get posters, and we had all these cool Flint Tropics basketballs that had the ABA look and that old school logo. Yeah. And I really wish I would have kept one of those. I really, really, really wish I still had a Flint Tropics basketball. That kind of bums me out that I got rid of that. But yeah, no, fun movie. Definitely not a big hit at the box office, and probably not one you can even find on playing on cable TV very often. But if you do, it's worth the watch.
Because at least it's not. If you would have came out of this with on your Mount Rushmore and on your list was like Blades of Glory, that movie was trash.
Honestly, I don't even think I've ever seen that movie.
Don't. Quick little side story. I only saw that movie by myself in a theater, and I don't have many of these on my resume where I've gone to a movie theater by myself. I don't know if that's something you've ever done. I know some people do it a lot. Some people think that's crazy. And in fact, I think I've only done it once or maybe twice. And one of them is for sure Blades of Glory. And the only reason I did it was I was getting my truck repaired. This is years ago, whenever that movie would have came out. And they were like, yeah, it's going to be a couple hours. And next door was a movie theater. So I went in by myself. There was only like two other people. It was like in the middle of a work day. And I left there going, I want my damn money back almost. Like, I didn't laugh. There's not much funniness going on in this one. Like, what happened, Will? So, but again, we wouldn't be picking a Mount Rushmore topic of someone that we were not truly huge fans of.
Yeah.
And we are. Everyone's allowed a stinker or two. And Blades of Glory is, I think, his absolute stinker.
You know what? I have not watched it before. It didn't really interest me that much because it kind of looked like a stinker. And now I have confirmation. That's actually a really good idea, though. I mean, I've never watched a movie by myself. I've never gone that I can remember that I've gone and sat and watched one by myself. But to kill time when your car's getting fixed, that's actually a brilliant idea. I mean, that's a great idea.
No-brainer.
If you got a couple hours to kill, I mean, why not?
And I think I even misspoke. I'm pretty sure I've only done that once in my life, and that is it. Because I'm trying. When I said I've done it once or twice, I can't think of the other one. So I'm starting to kind of put together. I don't think I've ever done that before.
Well, that was a good opportunity to do it.
I don't know. Maybe it's appropriate because it would feel weird, like if you're in an empty theater cackling to yourself, like, right? A part of seeing a comedy in a theater is you are also kind of laughing as a crowd. You're laughing as a group.
Well, If the theater was empty, maybe that should have been a sign there wasn't going to be a very good movie. you probably should have caught on right there.
Sure. I mean, but again, he's allowed a stinker because Will Ferrell is amazing. He's one of the funniest comedic actors we've ever seen.
I briefly considered this movie, but I knew I wasn't going to have it on my list. I kind of thought maybe you'd have it on yours. I would bet that most people, though, would have Talladega Nights on their list.
I was just going to say that. I was going to bring this up, too, because of the John C. Reilly chemistry.
Yeah.
That obviously they did do another comedy together, and it was a huge commercial success. I think it's a funny movie. I'm just not that into racing. Maybe that's why it wasn't on my list. You know, because not to get too off topic, but if I'm ever going to think of like a racing movie, I just go to like Days of Thunder and then go, cool movie, man.
Yeah, Days of Thunder is a good racing movie. And even Days of Thunder wouldn't make my Mount Rushmore of Tom Cruise movies, partly because, like you, I'm not that into racing. I mean, if I was really, really into racing, I probably would love Days of Thunder and I probably would love Talladega Nights. But yeah, NASCAR and that stuff's just not really my personal thing. I would bet people that are commenting on this, I'll bet a lot of them will include it. But
I bet majority will, and they'll think I'm crazy for like a night at the Roxbury or
semi-pro.
Maybe even people would think it's lame that I have Elf on here, but you know, how dare you?
Elf works. You're right, though. We will revisit. We'll do a Christmas movie bit towards the holidays, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about Elf then.
Yeah, because it'll 100% be on my list. Well, again, these are fun. These are just fun to reminisce because they're all fun movies. They are funny. It's Will Ferrell, for God's sake. When I look back at what we just talked about, and the one that we agreed on, the one that we matched was Step Brothers. And I've said this before on this podcast. If you don't like Step Brothers, you're a dick.
I'm going to agree with you on that one.
Falls under that category. I'm not going to say that every episode, but I am going to say it when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
This one's appropriate.
It's appropriate. Step Brothers is my favorite movie on both of our lists, of all of our lists, I would say. Although I've probably seen Elf more often just because I happen to watch that every year. I don't watch Step Brothers once a year like clockwork, but I probably do see Elf once a year. So that's interesting. But I would say though, the Step Brothers is my favorite movie of all the ones we talked about today.
Mine too. Yeah. But a close second for me probably is Elf, actually.
Yeah.
For completely different reasons. Yeah. Well, again, we definitely encourage people. Please, maybe there's a movie we didn't think about. We thought about it, but maybe confirm. Are we spot on with most people wanting Talladega Nights on their Mount Rushmore? That's also a great opportunity to point out this is your Mount Rushmore. Be specific. Doesn't matter if you think the majority are going to agree with you. And follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Check us out on the socials. Spread the word, for crying out loud. Let's get more people listening to this. You got anything else?
No, let's tear it down.
I did locate and find a very appropriate sponsor for this specific episode. I would like to give a quick shout out and thanks to Sex Panther Cologne. It's illegal in 9 countries, and 60% of the time, it works every time.